the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll
What's up, guys?
What's up, AJ? How are you, buddy?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Ish, how about you?
Hello, fellas. I'm doing good. Happy to be here.
We're
So,
having
Ish, I
fun.
got to ask you, how was Vegas?
Say again?
How was Vegas?
Guys, the audio is a little slow. Vegas was all right. You know, can't complain. Came back with a little more money I started with. That's all I can ever hope for. You know?
Did you gamble
And
your
by the
ass
way,
off?
it was 40 degrees most of the time.
So what
Oh,
was it?
But it was 45 degrees most of the time.
What was it, Formula One?
No, I went to Formula One last year. I'll never go again. It's awful. It's awful in Las Vegas. All the streets are closed. Don't bother. It's something that sounds great, but it's not.
So you were just out there to gamble.
I was out there for 4 or 5 days. I had I can work from there, so I worked from there. Didn't change my lifestyle very much. You know, just a lot different when I go downstairs in my elevator from here in Atlanta versus when I go down my elevator in Vegas. It's slightly different. I think that's about the biggest change.
Where'd you stay?
Mandalay Bay. Time.
Nice. All right.
But
So
by the way,
was-
the one thing
Go ahead.
the one thing that stinks about it is you like to walk a lot of places in Vegas. Mandalay Bay is too far away. Like it kind of makes it's kind of really secluded. If you want to go watch a game, the stadium is connected to that place. But if you really want to, stay in the city, stay at somewhere like Caesars or Bellagio where you can get to everything pretty easily.
But Mandalay Bay is good this time of year because it's so cold. You don't want to be walking around the strip. When we were there last year for the Super Bowl and we stayed at Mandalay, I think the furthest I went was maybe Excalibur one day, but I never had to go outside. Other than that, I wasn't going out in that freezing cold.
I mean, I like them all for different reasons. Once again, the one thing I will say about Mandalay Bay is it's the darkest casino in the history of modern man. I don't know who came up with the color scheme for that, but there must be someone who just has no idea between light and dark because the place is as dark as any place I've ever seen. It's as dark as a movie set. And that's saying something.
I never thought about it, but you're kind of right.
I still never been to Vegas.
What?
Yeah.
Doing your liver a favor. So your liver and everything else just it's a place that's inherently takes some time off your existence. So, but I learned to live with that.
We do that every day, my man. So Ish, I was telling AJ, I was giving him a little background of my friendship, and he was like, I haven't been friends with anybody that long.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can stick with me that long. My oldest friend, I met him in July. Matt, it's you, Matt. You're the oldest. You know, you're my
I'm
BFF
grateful.
now, buddy.
I mean, you're gonna.
I think it's just Wi-Fi is sort of like is iffy.
So
I mean, I have full, so it should be okay. It should be good, but we'll do our best.
Absolutely.
All right. So before we kick it with Ish, AJ, you got a couple of updates for us.
I got this, buddy.
Ooh, banger! Look at that.
All right. That's an owner's. This is an owner's
Very
sweatshirt
nice.
right here. An owner's sweatshirt. Nice. It's comfortable. You know what's cool when you buy this gear, like my Wrexham sweatshirt, that thing's like a winter coat. It's perfect for Florida when it gets really cold down here, like 70. I put that sucker on, and it's like being wrapped up in a blanket next to a campfire.
So now, since you're majority owner of Carrick Rangers, I hope they ship that to you for free.
Oh, yeah, absolutely they did. I said, can you send one to my friend? And they said, absolutely not. We need that money to sign players.
I wanted at least a scarf. I can't get that.
I'll see what I can do. Let me run over there after the show, and I'll pillage through the owner's office and see what I can come up with.
So it's just to bring you up to speed. AJ here is invested in a semi-professional soccer club in Ireland.
How dare you say semi-professional? They are professional, buddy. They beat Celtic.
Yeah, the alumni.
That is pretty good. A win's a win.
And AJ, give us the weekly update on Wrexham. What place are we in now?
You know, I was a little bit aggravated this weekend because I parlayed, of course, my team. I got to parlay Carrick, and they ended up 0-0. And then I parlayed Wrexham, who went right back to, we don't want to win anymore. We just want to draw all the time. And then Liverpool. So I should have bet. You know how much that would pay if you bet those 3 games all to end in a draw? That's a huge payout. I'm going to start doing that just for the hell of it.
But Liverpool, to be fair, they played a man down for 83 minutes.
It sounds like an excuse.
And the fact that it was still a draw tells you something.
Well, and I'll tell you this. Liverpool kicked their ass for 83 minutes after Robo got sent off. Fulham was lucky. They scored their second goal off of a freaking deflection off of a Liverpool defender falling into the goal. So, like...
I love how you just blew right past my Wrexham and right to your Liverpool. I like it. That's why the show is called Kicking Back with Matt. To answer your question, they're in third now. They're in third because of that draw. And they got 41 points. But here's the big news, right? That only us insiders that actually own European teams know is that Rob and Ryan are over there working. They're actually working to bring transfers in. So when Deadpool calls your phone, you answer it. And you say, yes, sir. Okay, I'll be there.
Hey, those guys have brought more attention to that team in whatever time they've been there than I think the aggregate knowledge of it from the beginning of time. I mean, those guys made it into must-watch. And you couldn't find a mammal that knew who they were outside of England. And even in England, it was still, iffy.
So AJ only stumbled into soccer because of the Wrexham documentary.
No, no, that's not accurate. It was the Olympics, and I shared an article from our website onto Facebook and Twitter and everywhere. And I watched the live Google Analytics blow up all over South America and all over Europe. And I said, holy cow, soccer is really something I need to get into. So I went home and I always remembered from watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia that there was that Welcome to Wrexham, which I was never interested in. Couldn't remember the name. All I remember was Wrexham. And then my wife figured out what it was and I binged it. And then you turned me on to Ted Lasso. And now, if there's soccer on Sundays, I ain't watching the NFL. I'm watching soccer.
Do they even cross over in time though? You can get a bunch of games like 9 o'clock in the morning. You'd be done by the time football shows up.
When MLS was playing and they were going up against the NFL, I mean, I had World Series one day. I had NBA, which I'm big into, and MLS. I chose MLS over everything.
MLS is just an expensive hobby. It's like the WNBA. Nobody really takes it seriously outside the United States. It's where you go and you come for your career when you want to make a little bit extra scratch and you have a name. And you decide to come over and you David Beckham yourself or Messi yourself and say, I'm the biggest guy at this team. And basically they want to, you bring attention to the league. They're not here. They could care less if they won or not. Miami lost in the first round of the playoffs when they were the number 1 seed. Trust me, I don't think Messi's sitting there crying about it.
Well, that's why, because Abu Dhabi United Group called me and said, hey, do you want to buy into New York Football Club? And because what you just said, I said, no, I'm going to go to Ireland instead and buy into the Rangers. You like that knowledge that I know who owns the New York Football Club?
You'd be the only one.
AJ, now you know why Ish and I have been friends for 40 plus years. We got the same take on the MLS.
Well, I will tell you this: the MLS can get good over time. You can't have a season like we do, but in truth, you can't have. I was mentioning this to you before. You can't have a season. They have it from March to like November now, give or take. It's right around there. If you had it, and we have all these outdoor stadiums, well, you can't play in the middle of winter here. You just can't. It'd be too brutal, and nobody would want to watch it anyway. So how does that work? You have to essentially transfer everything to either indoor facilities, which is probably going to be the most likely thing over time. Think about it, Detroit, Minnesota. It's only places like New England and New York that really don't have them anymore, and Seattle and Portland. I think the rest of the cold weather places have all kind of figured out you need an indoor stadium because once again, you can't run an off-cycle league. That's just too difficult.
And think about it. They're building soccer-specific stadiums, right? So they're holding 20, 25,000 people instead of 60 to 80,000 like they do in Europe. So the cost can't be that much more when you're building that soccer-specific stadium to put a roof on it or to have it be retractable.
Well, here in Atlanta, what they do is instead of doing that, they play in the major stadium. They play in Mercedes-Benz. They just don't have the upper deck. They just tarp over it, and no one sits in the upper deck. Everyone sits below. So, once again, you don't want it to look bad on TV either. If you do, then it's like, okay, nobody. You don't want that product to look like that on TV. Like, okay, even the people there don't care. Okay,
did they open the roof at the Mercedes Dome?
They can. It can be open or closed. The place is an eyesore.
Look,
do they do it like during the spring, the fall? Do they do it for MLS games, or is the roof always closed for those games?
No, it's up to the weather.
Okay.
For the most part, when the few times I've been there, I've been there like 2 or 3 times for Falcons games this year. It's usually closed, but we're talking about the winter. So, and overall, but I'll just tell you, the place is an eyesore beyond anything I've ever seen. It looks like just someone had created some epileptic contemporary art, and it just looks like a bunch of triangles that someone got wrong when they had those magnets on. And it just looks awful. And I go, spending a lot of money on that was just I don't see it. Make
I'm
make
gonna
it
tell
nice,
you one
round,
thing,
and
though.
symmetrical. Okay, you don't have to get too creative with everything.
The one thing that MLS has in Atlanta that the NFL doesn't have, Chick-fil-A. Because there's a Chick-fil-A in that stadium, but they don't open on Sundays, Chick-fil-A, not even
That's
for the
true because
almighty NFL.
yes, they will not do it anywhere on earth so far. Don't worry. Let
and
me tell
Atlanta,
you, they'll mess with that.
and Atlanta is a sore spot for AJ right now because he bet the house on them to make it to the MLS Cup final.
Because of Nick. Nick convinced me into it, and they went backtracking last week.
Yeah.
It's I mean, once again, the MLS, especially towards the end of the season, like I said, you have the number one team go out real early, so it can be a real crapshoot. I mean, Atlanta won it a couple of years ago. Seattle was very good for a long time when the league only had a handful of teams. I mean, the toughest part about this is with every year you get two expansion teams. Every team's depth goes down just by rote. Like you're going to lose X number of guys, so you're without depth, one or two injuries, and your season is gone. And this happens. This happens everywhere. And you go like this: if you're going to keep doing expansion teams, you're going to get more of this. Just you have to have 2 or 3 seasons where you say, okay, we're happy with what we got, and there's no way they're going to be okay with that. Not in a million years. They want to get as much as they would get 100 teams if they could. Granted, I don't know where you would put them.
It's well, they're going to try to follow all these other countries and leagues models, right? Where they're going to have divisions. You're going to get promoted or you're going to get relegated.
Yeah, I think that's just the natural progression. And so here's the part I was still amazed about. Is that I think we all heard this today. The 96 team tournament. Okay. Just once again, I will say this because this is hard enough when it all happens in one country at one time. Okay. When you try to get 68 teams, which was the stupidest thing ever, 64 is where the NCAA should have stayed. And, to get 64 teams in the right place to go play a tournament and do all that, the logistics are awful. It's just very difficult to do. Try imagine doing this several times with a ton more teams, some of whom don't have the finances to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck with that one. And I'm curious as to how, I mean, anyone have any thoughts on this? Like 96 teams of whatever. I mean, I don't even know what you want to call it.
It's the reinvention of the failed Super League. It's just a grossly over amount of teams, and I feel like, as always, it's about the money, right? But it's this Super League that wants to bury everybody and say, well. I read into it a little bit today, and they want to create all these different divisions. You can't even keep track of it. So, like, who's going to want to watch it? Like, Champions League now is at 36 teams. That's doable. This is almost triple. It's insane and mind-blowing.
And not to mention, it's another tournament. Okay? You know how many there are that, I mean, what is the one in England where even the lower division teams, they move up and then they all play until someone wins at the end? The one that, okay, a few teams play the first week, the relegated ones. Then there's the third division, second division, and everyone gets together. It's the big, English version or UK version of that. Do you guys remember the name? Well,
so England has 2 cups.
Yeah, okay.
They've got the Caribou Cup, and then they've got the it's the EFL Cup, the English Football League Cup, and that's the one you're talking about. That's where every freaking team in England qualifies every year, and you've got the Jack and the Beanstalk round for like 8 rounds, right?
Yeah, Wrexham got bounced right out of that cup this year.
Well,
I mean, you know how My question has always been, how do you keep up with this? Like it goes on forever, okay? And it doesn't happen on a, you if you looked it up, it sort of happens on a regular schedule, but not really. Your team might not play until halfway through. You might not see your own team, you might not know. And then by the time it ends, the only people that are happy or care about it are the people in the stadium. And that includes probably half their families. Because by then you kind of go, okay, the tournament lasts the entire year. It doesn't feel special. Okay, let's put it this way: why did we like the NCAA tournament? Because it's 3 darn weeks. You're done. You like that time of year has some beauty to it. UEFA Champions League, same thing. You disperse it out over the year. People get disinterested with it. They go, okay, fine, I'll watch the final, but don't expect me to watch 80 different games and be able to keep up with it. No one would keep up with the scores. I mean, that's why, like, if it all happens in one weekend, the beauty is that you can at least look at the scores. Fine, I can't watch every game, but at least I know who won and lost. This is one of those, well, some guys play on Wednesday night, some play on Tuesdays, some play in the afternoon, some play in the evenings, and you go like this. Okay, I don't have the time and or the ability to care. Okay? And now do your Super League thing, and it's going to get a lot worse because all of a sudden, then the Super League guys will say the Champions League doesn't matter anymore. We won the Super League. Okay, we're better than you. Then you're going to find this, and it's going to be a disaster because let me tell you why. Where are you going to fit it in? Where? Find me all that open space in a calendar that they got.
They're not.
I mean,
They're not. And here's the other problem, Ish. Like, this is AJ's problem, is he can't find these games. He's spending half a day trying to find the game.
you'd have to get the 84 Sky Sports channels, and you'd have to get one game per, and it's assuming rugby and a few other things weren't. Rugby and cricket were off that day, and so and so and so it's once again it becomes so convoluted. And here's an example of just where FIFA is just so corrupt. And so, I mean, we'll talk about the World Cup in just a minute, but this is where FIFA is so corrupt. Okay, you're taking all this money, and then you're trying to just build. This is all going to the administrators or whatever. They've been corrupt for years. But the part that always drives me crazy is, okay, we didn't approve of this before, we approve of it now. And I go, let me guess. Someone handed you a little envelope or a really thick one, and or it's just like that casino that gets built in your town. No, we oppose it. It's wrong. It's morally horrible. Actually, no, it's going to bring jobs. Okay, let me tell you something. You didn't care either way. You cared that you were not getting your 30 pieces of silver, and that's how these things come about. And if there's enough silver, you will have this tournament to go along with the rest. And let me just tell you, this summer was the epitome, okay? If you throw in all the friendlies, the Olympics, and the Euro qualifying, some of these Euro players did not have like 2 weeks off. Okay. And then you wonder why the guy from Man City gets hurt. Yeah, it's a shock, isn't it? You have the qualifying tournaments, you have the friendlies, you have everything that comes with it. And, imagine in a World Cup year, if you're going to have people playing year round and doubling up their schedule, I mean, you're going to make it easy to go to Saudi Arabia, play 10 games, make a couple $100 million, and, be perfectly content. It's.
We spoke about this a couple of months ago, AJ. Remember when they were talking about striking?
Mm-hmm.
Because their games played, some of these guys are playing 75 to 80 games a year. And Ish, to your point, not only do they have international duty, they've got club duty. And we just talked about it with Man City, right? They're in every competition in the world because of how good they are. So they've got league play. They've got the two domestic cups to play for. UEFA Champions League to play for. And then that UEFA Champions League, Champions of Champions League that they got to go play. So these guys are, instead of playing like 50 to 55, maybe 60 games, they're ratcheting up another 15 to 20 games. And that's a lot of wear and tear for the amount of running that these dudes do.
Well, then what about that Club World Cup? They have that also.
That's the one I'm talking about. The champions of champions. You wait.
The Club World Cup. But you also, I mean, think about all the friendlies, okay? For your big time players, if a friendlies to watch them, okay, nobody really coming for anybody else. So they have to be playing in those. And then, like I said, do the qualifying for Euro. And luckily, most of them don't play the Olympics. But you are throwing in a bunch of crap. And at the end of the day, and like even the Spanish league has an internal, they have an internal cup too. All of them do. They have some sort
All
of.
of them. All of them have it.
Why do you have an internal cup? Why don't you have playoffs instead? That would make sense. It's stupid. It's like the NBA Cup right now.
That's tonight. Oklahoma City and the Milwaukee Bucks. Take OKC -5. It's a lock.
The Lakers won last year. Let me tell you something. Does anyone remember or care? Absolutely not. Okay, if I were the owner, I'd be like, lose on purpose. Don't you dare play this. Okay, this is a waste of very valuable resources when enough guys get injured all the time. And if someone loses, if someone like Giannis were to get hurt in this, your season's over. You're going home, and this is not worth it. Like I would never tell one of my players go play in an Olympics. No, I pay you not to. I pay you to be ready for 82 games. How dare you, take up practice in another 3 months of when you should be recuperating, preparing for the season? Because remember, Olympics is like a month and a half when you start with all the qualifying and all the other crap. Here's the funny part. You're already out there with training camp for 9 months a year. That is your day job. You shouldn't be doing all these other things. I would literally tell you, hey, if you can, cool it down. There's no need forget about, the travel wear and tear and all the other things. And the guys that are playing now, so many they've actually lasted a bit longer. A lot of them are in the 30s, because you could see some of your better players now being in their 30s. I would tell you 20 years ago, none of them were. None of the better players were in their 30s. You would always get
sports science has come, leaps and bounds. The problem is the amount of money that they're paying all these athletes. I don't care what sport it is, right? We're talking soccer here. So, why do these owners want to encourage and promote all these extra cups and call my team won the double, they won the triple, they won the quadruple, they're one of the greatest teams of all time? To me, success is winning it over and over and over again. I don't want to win a treble or a quadruple one year and then be a sucky team for the next 10 because I ran all my guys into the ground. It's just like we're oversaturating the market now, and it's taking away from what's so special about international football, like the World Cup meaning something, being played every 4 freaking years, right? And Champions League, I get it. Like the FA Cup in England is older than old, goes back to the Jurassic era. But this Super League, it's literally on the verge of stupidity. It's so frustrating, and I want to roll over to what's next because of what's starting to happen with the World Cup. Like the sanctity of the World Cup being held in one country, and that country bribing their way, as we all know, to get it. And paying up to get it. Dudes have lost their lives because of it and their jobs because of it. So, we're talking 26 World Cups in 3 countries. 2030, we're in 6 countries. And 3 of the countries are in South America. 2 of them are in Europe, and one of them is in Africa. What the hell is going on here?
I mean, to tell you the truth, that is not as bad as I would have said the Qatar one. Okay, or or the Brazilian one. Let's go back a little bit. When you're in Brazil, if you ever go down there, like they have enough stadiums probably in Sao Paulo and Rio, but you could probably do half of them, half of the games there. And what was messed up is there you have like one or two stadiums that were used for 4 stinking games. There's one out in the middle. It's a place called Manaus. It's in the middle of the Amazon. It was abandoned. Okay, there's nobody there. Okay, it was literally abandoned out in the middle of nowhere. Cost $200 million to build a stadium that was used for 4 games. Okay, do me a favor. If not every country should have a World Cup. You should, don't get me wrong. By the way, Brazil had the Summer Olympics and a World Cup like right back to back. That was even weirder. But these are places that don't have the money, and they're taking it from their people. Okay, they just take it from. They literally, for some of the Olympic venues, they would go up into the favelas, which are, I don't want to call it a slum, but that would be kind of the rough translation. But people had lived there for generations to build a cycling venue that essentially got abandoned also after a week. And you're taking away people's homes and taking $200 million from people that don't have it. Like, how nuts do you have to be? I mean, if you're FIFA, deep down, you know what you should be saying. You should already have the infrastructure for it. Like, if you have to build here or there, I get it. But what's absurd is to have it in places that, frankly, you can't afford it. It's I'm going to bring this up later again with Casablanca. Think about Qatar. Qatar is smaller than New Jersey. Okay, it is smaller than New Jersey. Can someone look up how many square miles Qatar is? Can someone look that up? I think it's 160 square miles as a whole.
And how many workers died building those stadiums?
Hundreds died. And first of all, for a tournament that happened in the middle of the summer in a place that it's blazing hot. Number 2 is just because you can build something, doesn't mean you should. Okay?
4,500 square miles.
4,500 square miles, so it's not even 100 square miles in both directions. It would be, I think, probably 70 miles, less than 70 miles in each direction. So 70 miles, and then that makes 4,900. So
well, Ish, keep in mind too that they moved the World Cup for that. They didn't play it in the summer. They moved it to November and December.
Yeah, and I'm talking about when they were constructing this crap. And first of all, why are you moving it? That's absurd. The club season is a club season. Do it in the off season. It was meant to be done when it was meant to be done. Okay, so these people are working during this. Most of them died of heat exhaustion, which any mammal on Earth would have. You built 8 stadiums that might be used once a year or twice a year for the rest of their existence. And the Qataris have enough money that they don't care. It's one of the richest countries on Earth. But if you're going to just go to the highest bidder, which is fine, if that's your aim here. But that one was where they recorded the guy from Nigeria saying, "I gave my vote because someone gave me 800,000 in cash." They don't even hide it anymore. Hey, here's an envelope. Go for it.
So let's real quick, just to stay on the topic of where we are, like with how they're going to play the tournament. We all know Saudi Arabia just got awarded 2034, right?
Yeah.
So I was reading about it, and they can't move the tournament to the same time they did with Qatar because it's Ramadan. So now, when the hell are you going to play this tournament? They're talking about they're going to play it in January. Well, that's just going to screw even more things up. So, it's like, what are we willing to do to make a buck?
Well,
and ruin the integrity of the sport and ruin the integrity of all these leagues.
The one thing, back to what you're talking about, the next time is three of them, 3 countries. I will say this: I don't have as much a problem with it for one reason. Canada doesn't need a cup by itself. Neither does Mexico. Throw a few games here and there, as opposed to putting the crux of it there, I'm perfectly comfortable with that. Okay. The one afterwards, if you ever taken a flight from Portugal to Madrid to Morocco, then Casablanca is like really up at the top. It's an hour. It's an hour, maybe an hour and a half to get from place to place. It's really so close by. And like I said, if I don't want to bother with having Morocco have a whole one for themselves, this will be a Spanish one, but throw a couple of games. They already have the stadiums, by the way. In Portugal, they already have them because they have a couple of real big teams over there. So you go over to Lisbon, it can support the people in a game. Even Estoril probably could. You could probably do a couple of those. And then you do a predominant amount in Spain, but you're not really building anything for it. The only place they're going to build is Casablanca. They're trying to throw 3 games in South America because it was the original cup in 1930 was in Uruguay. So they want to
centennial year. Yeah.
Yeah. So they want to put it back there. I go, and well, I mean, come on. And the funniest part is all they'll do is there's three countries are real happy about this. Well, not that they wouldn't qualify anyway. Argentina would qualify anyway. But Uruguay and Paraguay, if they didn't qualify, they get an automatic spot now. Because that's where if the game that will be there, it'll be a home game. It's not going to be anything else.
Uruguay is in there predominantly every cycle. But here's a thought. Why don't we just hold the tournament in South America in those 3 freaking countries? And then the next cycle in 34, put it in Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. And that gives you even more time to figure out logistics with Saudi Arabia.
I'll tell you right now, because places like Argentina don't have any money. They have nothing. I mean, and by the way, if we do this in the summer, that's their winter. Argentina gets pretty stinking cold.
How
okay,
cold?
so I mean, we're talking Massachusetts level cold. They have mountains. They have skiing. So
they got the Andes, right?
Yeah, they have plenty of. It's cold enough. So here's where I'm getting at with this is that it really doesn't even belong there in the first place. I agree, but how much you're willing to make a buck, I guess we're finding out. But I'll say the ideal place to do it in the summer would be a place like Spain, Portugal, Morocco. Remember they're only going to do one stadium in Morocco. It's going to be the stadium in Casablanca, which they're building brand new. And if you've ever been to Casablanca, all you want to know is where the hell you're going to put it. Everyone's on top of everyone there. I don't know where the hell you would actually place it. But, I mean, all the other stuff, I don't mind because it's already done. It's all. What I hated about Qatar is you have to build the damn place. What I would hate is if, let's just say, this has happened before, is if you give the World Cup to the U.S., then Mexico or Canada will demand it in the near future. They'll say, no, we want one of our own. And you're like, no, you're not capable of having one of your own. It's not populous enough. It's not, you don't have the infrastructure for it. It would make absolutely zero sense to do it. So if you're gonna get some of them off your back, and not to mention, some people do go over there for a month. I think if you're a traveler, go check out all 3 countries while you're there. If you came from halfway around the world, hey, go check out a game here, go check out a game there. Just do one stadium in Mexico City, probably be El Azteca Stadium. Let's hope they renovate it. And then we have 5 in the US and 2 in Canada. I think it's going to be Vancouver and Toronto. I think that's what it's going to look like. And I mean, right now, as bad as they are, where you're throwing it, you're making it worse every time, and you're manipulating the system to this nth degree of where, oh my God, we need to move it to January. Okay, what are you aiming for here? Are you trying to make it so that the World Cup people don't want to come anymore? I mean, don't forget this. The summer is when, for most countries, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, that's when their kids have vacation. You can't go to these games if your kids are not on vacation. That happens in the summertime. So who would end up going? A bunch of corporate schmucks like they did last time in Qatar. It's just a bunch of corporate people because who would have that time off, or you can't take your kids out of school in November. Okay, you cannot take your kids out of school in November for a couple of weeks or 3 or 4 weeks. You're not going to do that. So what do?
Well,
You have a bunch of corporate guys who fly in on private planes, and they're the only ones who go.
the last time I checked, I think for the final for the 2026 World Cup, I think the tickets are going for over $2,000 a pop. So who's going to afford those tickets?
Yeah,
Corporate.
Here in the U.S. Yeah, here in the U.S. that's a given. And by the way, that's the face price. No one is, only the sponsors get the face price. Regular people like us will be paying 10, 12 times that.
Well-
And also, it depends on who it is. That's kind of the rub here, is that if you get to if it just by chance were Croatia against, let's just say, Portugal, for whatever reason, well, it wouldn't be as expensive. There's just not as many people in the U.S. from there, and people saying, okay, well, and remember, a lot of the people are assuming that their team is good
But
all the time.
It all varies
because they're
by
like,
it all varies by cycle, right? Every 4-year cycle. But I can tell you this. I mean, we're going to be in the Bleacher Brothers / Carrick Rangers suite at the World Cup final. Am I wrong, AJ?
No, you're right. And if they just would hold the World Cup at the Taylor Avenue Stadium, it only holds 6,000. So I would assume that we could get, I don't know, 10 grand a ticket, 20 grand a ticket, just face value, and then on the secondary we could make a fortune. That's I don't know how. Who do I call? Who do I just have to send somebody an envelope full of cash, right? And we can get this done.
Just call anybody at FIFA because they're all on the take.
Got it. All right. Let me see what I got.
hey, by the way, though, let's not say they're the most corrupt, because let me tell you, the International Olympic Committee, they would take that personally. Okay, what's funny is they, as opposed to politicians, you think politicians are naturally born, the way they are. Right. The funny part is these guys get away with it. These guys get away with it. So we're trying to be fair in sport. You're like, yeah, and I have a bridge to sell you in Kansas. Thanks. Don't treat me like I'm an idiot. Like, we know what's going on here. And I mean, I keep saying this. It should be rotated within 4 or 5 countries where the infrastructure is already there. You have enough stadiums. You have enough hotel rooms. Okay, and I wouldn't even mind it. If the World Cup was once just, let's just say, in one city. Okay, having it in one city, you have a game every day, or 2 games every day, and be like, fine. I mean, I guess every country wouldn't like it because everyone would want their piece. The mayor of every city would be like, okay, why are we not getting it? But once again, you take out the travel, you take out them going to look for a new hotel all the time. It just creates for the best play. You just get used to the conditions. I mean, you're telling me that playing in a place like Las Vegas is going to be the same as playing in Vancouver? It's not, or in Mexico. That's where Qatar, the players loved it because the players, they never moved. They stayed in one hotel the whole time.
Yeah, and you know what? You don't have to host the World Cup in a country in order to grow the game.
That's true.
It's the worldwide sport. Every single country plays soccer. So, like, I don't have to go to Saudi to grow the game. They already have their own league. But, like, who wants to, like, the same with Qatar, like, who wants to go and play in the middle of a freaking desert?
Well, Qatar is a little bit more, how should I put it, liberal. I mean, not liberal by our standards. Are they just assuming women are not going to come to the Saudi Arabian one?
Yeah, I was talking with somebody yesterday morning, and that's what we were talking about. It's like the human rights issue. Everybody had a problem with Qatar. but like we're not going to have more of a problem with Saudi.
No.
So
Here's
it's a little crazy.
No, but I'm not talking about human rights even. Okay, I'm not even getting into it. But first of all, we have no country should have to change their culture to suit foreigners. That's just not. I mean, even I agree with that. Okay, fine. You have rules the way your religion goes. Fine, but once again, if you give it to them, women are not allowed to do a lot of things there. Like you just basically priced women out of wanting to come. I mean, even if you did, like, have you ever watched one of these fights or WWE events in Saudi? Have you ever seen? By the way, they do an amazing.
I haven't.
This weekend, heavyweight championship rematch: Tyson Fury and Usyk this weekend in Saudi Arabia.
But so they have two really, really great stadiums, at least that I know of. They probably have 3 or 4. And I'm talking about these are first class, built very well, and they do a really good job. Look in the crowd. You won't see one female, not a singular one. Like it's and don't get me wrong, you're gonna see more men at a wrestling match or a boxing match, but you'll see somebody. You'll see one female around. They don't joke around with that. You're not supposed to, women are supposed to behave in certain ways. Now, don't get me wrong, and my house is kind of the same. So, otherwise you might get some of that. So, but as far as just they're naturally, they naturally don't believe. It's a very restrictive place. I don't know how do you reconcile that? Okay, you're just telling women not to show up.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just I don't mind the Mexico, U.S., Canada thing. It kind of makes sense to me. They're all closely tight, right? I think the Morocco, Spain, Portugal one. I think that's going to be a great place for us to broadcast from, AJ. When we go there in 6 years with Bleacher Brothers. I don't know, man. Like, to me, just soccer. Like, I want to give the World Cup to like a passionate fan base, and I don't want to give it to somebody just because they got the most money in the world and they can afford to build and do whatever they want. It just kind of takes away like the history, the intimacy of it,
But I'll tell you right now, the Brazilians, they did all that, and it was a gigantic mistake. Those are the most passionate fans. They love the history of the game, and even that wasn't good. It just didn't work because let me tell you why. They can't afford it. I mean, that's where I wouldn't even mind having it in England. I think England has at least 15 venues already that you could easily have a game in without fail. Okay, nothing's very far away. So you could keep your team in the same training ground and do a lot of that stuff. Or let's just say Germans who have the Bundesliga, you have enough infrastructure and the hotel rooms and all the other stuff. Whereas, even the one in Russia, nothing was close. I mean, if you've ever been to Russia, there's not much that's nearby. Everything is, it's the world's largest country. And people going from here to there. And I just think that, and that's fine by me. What was weird is having the Winter Olympics there in a beach resort. I'll never forget that one. That one took the taco.
Honestly, Germany, like when they did it in 2006, awesome. Perfect country, perfect setup with all the stadiums. I agree with you with England, but if England ever gets it, it's the UK. They're going to throw a game or two in Scotland. They'll throw a game or two in Ireland, probably at Carrick Rangers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But England's the ideal. And you got Wembley.
Yeah. And I mean, don't forget, Arsenal has their stadium. Chelsea has their stadium. I mean, Man City, Man U, everybody has a stadium. So that
what about Liverpool?
Liverpool has a stadium too.
What about the racetrack at Wrexham?
And all of these, and yeah, but even if we're talking about Ireland, Scotland, a flight is 45 minutes. Yeah. We're not talking. Everything is pretty darn close. And like I said, it'd be nice for the players to kind of have a home base, be able to train in one place, I mean, you could keep, they usually bring their families. Okay, the families can kind of get situated somewhere. And I mean, I'm sure that I don't remember the last time they really have what I don't think they bid on it very much in the recent past. I mean, I don't think that they've ever wanted to really do it. Uh, I'm sure that at some point they'll probably get to Australia. Australia has a ton of potential sites because if you have rugby or you have cricket, you got space because those stadiums are absolutely monstrous. But once again, their bigger problem is going to be on being on the southern hemisphere. China will have to get one soon. China is going to have to.
Well,
It's just that's the one place.
South Korea had it in 2002, and I remember getting up at 3:00 in the morning to watch the U.S. men's team. And that's that's like when we were good and we were advancing into like the second round of the knockout.
Didn't they split it with Japan? Didn't they split it with Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah, they split it with Japan. It was a perfect arrangement. Like you don't put it, everything's close by, but you don't, that way South Korea can't say we never got it, and we, because that's always a thing. Oh well, we got left out of it last time. Oh, we got left out of it. When you get a little bit of something, but you really don't need the whole shebang, this is the best way to approach this. Is just, hey, give them a couple of games. Use a couple of stadiums. Make sure it's close by. Because otherwise, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up having a situation where you go to a country and, if they'd said, let's just say Qatar had said, okay, we'll split it with Saudi Arabia and a couple of others, right in that region there. Qatar only builds one or two stadiums with everywhere else. And let's just say, they can all play at night. They could all do something where you could still make it at a reasonable time of year, as opposed to putting it in one place where, okay, so it'd be like, listen, Qatar built two stadiums, make sure they have a roof. Fine, we can still hold it when it needs to be held. If they'd split that up with a couple of other places around there, because all the countries have money. The only thing that I don't understand is, well, what do you do with those 8 stadiums now? All those people died building them. What do you do? Like, what are they good for? I mean, how many exhibition matches can you have? I mean, it can only happen so often.
I think those places. I think those places are sitting empty now. I don't think Qatar.
That's what I mean. They don't have a league. They don't have a league that's popular or that many people go to watch. I'm sure they have one. They have such a thing, but remember, Qatar doesn't have very many of its own citizens.
Right.
To be a Qatari citizen is it's very difficult to get Qatari citizenship. Versus, it's mostly expats, guys who work in finance or technology who go over there. A lot of the people that live there are not Qataris. And so once again, it was built for a very, very small reason. And, once again, it's just a waste of resources. I mean, give it to poor people or something. I don't care what you do with it, but don't do this again where you take a $200 million stadium, put it out in the middle of the Amazon, and the only thing inhabiting it right now are piranhas and goddamn whatever else that filtered into there.
Anacondas, jaguars, and keep in mind, that FIFA, they have a seating capacity requirement. So, like all these specific built MLS stadiums, they're never going to touch a World Cup game because they don't hold enough people. So that's the other thing is like when you're asking for these poor countries to build these stadiums, the costs are so much more because they have to build a stadium that's 3 times the size.
Don't forget some of like Brazil, like the main Sao Paulo and Rio teams, their stadium is plenty big enough. I've been inside. Yeah, those are fine. It's the ones that you build outside there, and you're right. I think it's 60 or 65,000 is the dead minimum to host a game. Luckily, in the U.S., the football stadiums easily can accommodate all that. And then you could probably do, I figure in Toronto, you'll do the Rogers Center where the Blue Jays play. And I figure Vancouver, they have a relatively big stadium over there, which they had for the Winter Olympics anyway. And so, and Azteca in Mexico will qualify also.
Yeah,
But
and that's the only venue in Mexico that's hosted a game, right?
remember, they had the World Cup in '86.
Yeah, but FIFA's seating capacity requirements weren't what they were then, what they are now. That'll be 40 years ago.
No, that's true. I mean, everything is 65 or above, and I think it's a minimum of like 80 to hold a final. I was just reading about it today, 80 to hold a final, which that's why I think this year is going to be most likely. I mean, the next World Cup is going to be in Los Angeles. It's going to be SoFi.
MetLife got the final.
Oof. It's stupid because if it rains that day, you're gonna regret it. It's just
but it's right across the Hudson from New York City. I mean,
no, I know
maximizing that buck.
No, I mean I understand why, but part of me goes, this is a worldwide thing, and if it rains that day, when you have other options, give them a semifinal, make this a final, or part of what else I'm thinking about is just the ones that they're going to use in Spain. It's going to be easily be just the Bernabeu. It's 115,000. You can stick them in there. And so there's not much thing. Like I said, Wembley. Okay, if you already got it, use it. Like there should, I mean, it's one of those where there's not that much going on here. But here's the thing. This is degenerating. This isn't getting better. They're not saying, how can we make this more convenient? How can we make this better? They're just saying, hey, whomever it is only in power for 10 or 20 years. I want to make as much money up front and behind closed doors as I can. And this is going to be perpetually happening. There's no doubt about it. You want to know what I mean? It's going to continue to be in bad shape for one reason. It's because, once again, how do you hold somebody accountable? How?
Yeah,
and by the way,
and before we jump, I was looking it up. AJ, you asked me this question either last week or the week before about the TV rights for the World Cup in the U.S. So just alone in the U.S. for 26, it's $420 million for essentially a 1 month tournament. So now add up all the other countries in their TV rights and think about what the overall TV rights are for a tournament like this. You're talking billions.
Yeah, it's even too steep for Juan Soto to pay for.
No, I'll tell you, it was even worse for the Olympics by probably double or triple for the U.S. The U.S. is actually not high. If you can believe this, the U.S. is not the world's, for viewing, we are not by anywhere close to the greatest viewing country. So 420 is going to be light. For like Sky doing it in Europe, it'll be a downright fortune. When you put it in Tokyo, or the Japanese TV, the Chinese TV, because in China it's all done by state-run TV, so they'll pay whatever they feel like. Theirs will be a little bit less. But as far as the European rights are going to be far and away the most. They're the most mad people about it, and you charge what you can. Like I'll just put it to you this way: if you think someone has money, you can charge them. You can't, because you also have to understand, in a place like South America, even though they're all going to be dying and watching. Okay, I actually was. These guys woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning for Argentina against Saudi Arabia. I remember going to watch the game at a cafe, and every place was shut down. Everything was closed. The world stopped. Okay.
Well, you're talking the World Cup final between Argentina and France?
No, this was the first game. It was against Saudi Arabia. A
Oh,
humiliating.
the opening. Okay, their
a
opening game.
Oh yeah, let me just tell you, it was a mortuary in that country. After that game, like they actually ended up winning it all, but they were crushed, losing to a team that had no business even being on the same field with them. But remember, countries like Argentina, most of their TV and your regular person can't afford very much. So the money, you can only ask from them what they can pay. So places like Brazil and Argentina, yes, they're all mad with this stuff and they all love it, but they don't get much. Where the money is going to come from is going to be U.S., which will get 420. The rights in Europe will be 2 to 3 billion easy, without blinking, because first of all, what you do is divide and conquer. I'd make the UK pay their own, then I would make Spain pay their own, then I go to Germany, and I go one by one, and you're just gonna, let's just say 200 million for 20 or 30 countries, and you think the Italians won't pay whatever it costs? They're happy to fork it over.
The Azuri is going to pay.
Huh? Say again?
The Azuri is going to pay.
They all will. It's. I mean, once again, until we stop paying for it, and it's not as big a deal as it is. They put it this way. I bet you this is their thought process. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They have zero interest in fixing it. They don't want to fix it. They don't care. And if you bothered to say something to them, let me tell you exactly what they'd say. We'll get back to you. That'd be the, and I'm not sure that it might be in another language, and it might not be that polite.
Well, I know we wanted to hit on Chelsea, but unfortunately, we're out of time. We're up against it. So,
can I make a quick announcement before you wrap it?
Yeah.
So the board just texted me. The Rangers will be holding open workouts at all abandoned World Cup stadiums on December 26th. So check with your local newspaper.
I've always wanted to go to the Amazon. Okay, I'm going to the one in Manaus because I've always wanted to see that place. I want to see how you guys get around the anacondas, though. I want to see or is that a good training method?
That's probably a good training method. I'll be up in the box just watching, and whoever gets around them the best moves on to the next round of tryouts.
All right, everybody, we're going to be on break for the next 2 weeks.
I'm all in.
We will see you guys in the new year. Enjoy the holidays.
Be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a goal.